So thank you for attending our little presentation today. We are from JPMorgan Chase, and we're here to tell a story that we've been living for the last 6 years about how we've changed or are working to change the culture at the giant JPMorgan Chase to build this culture of modern analytics. So who are we? My name's Stephen Hiddle, and I'm in IT. It's the first step to healing, right? Is admitting that I'm in IT. And I've been a Tableau user for 2011. I came to JPMorgan Chase, though, as a business developer, so I have an understanding of the business, but currently my role is to lead within the Center of Excellence in IT.
And I'm Jason Mack, and I'm in the business. I lead an analytics team that's focused on customer and marketing. I've been a Tableau user since 2007. And Steve and I both started at Chase in different lines of business, and we actually work in 2 totally separate locations. I'm in Wilmington, Delaware.
And I'm in Ohio. Are there any other Buckeyes here? OH! Oh, come on. That's an Ohio thing. If you don't understand, that's okay.
I don't understand.
So we're here to talk about the challenge. So when I entered IT, again, I came from the business, I realized that there was this extreme landscape of seemingly incompatible views. On one side, IT. We want governance. We want control. We want to do everything because we know the best. We want SDLC, follow this life cycle, to guarantee your success. But honestly, if we're honest, it takes a long time. And at the end of that journey, they probably come up with something else. And we're not delivering what they really want. That's the challenge.
And on the business side, we were staffing up these massive teams of analysts. I know IT likes to call them users, but I like to think of them as people. But these teams of people, analysts that, kind of felt abandoned and, had to kind of go their own way. It was a bit of an analytics underground or the Wild West like we heard about yesterday. They used whatever tools they had at their disposal, Excel, SAS, replicating data and solutions thousands of times over. Now, I had been an early adopter of Tableau at a previous role in another company, and I knew I wanted to get that kind of tool into the hands of my team so they could be successful.
I agree, and I apologize. Calling them users may not be the best approach. So we call them customers now.
Sounds
good. So they are customers,
That's a good
and
term.
they are people. And the tools that we were using, Cognos, Business Objects, they've been around forever, and they just weren't giving us the flexibility and the agility that our business teams were wanting. So we were looking for something new. And ultimately, we needed something to find the balance between what IT wanted and what the business wanted. Do you ever felt like you're walking this straight line, trying to balance the needs of a highly regulated business and a very nimble, demanding business team? I feel like that some days where I'm teetering on the edge over a very deep chasm. But ultimately, IT is about providing reliability. Who wants a system that goes down? Who wants a report that's inaccurate? So we need good governance. We need metadata. We need lineage. We need all those things. That's what I was hearing when I joined this organization.
And on the business side, we want systems that are flexible. We want our analysts to have access to the analytics that can help solve key business questions, right? We wanted to empower employees that don't know how to do sophisticated coding to still leverage data in their decision-making process. We had to balance both of these seemingly competing ideals. And now, 6 years ago at JPMorgan Chase, there were exactly 0 people using this tool called Tableau that today is used by tens of thousands of analysts, managers, and senior executives all over the world every day.
So here we are. And that's what we're going to describe for you today, this journey we've been on for the last 6 years. It's been an adventure, an amazing adventure at that. And you're going to see a little bit about that. You're going to hear about the challenges that we've had, both technology challenges. Some of the technology just couldn't do it. The cultural changes that had to take place. If we're going to try to do things differently, and they've been doing it the same way forever, a lot of resistance. And ultimately, we had to work to provide these benefits so that the business could be successful and still, ultimately build this analytics-driven culture and keep things, to where we're comfortable.
So as Steve and I were kind of talking about this and reflecting back on the 6-year journey, we realized that our journey really bore resemblance to one of our favorite 80s movies. The 1989 film, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, right? It's young Keanu Reeves. Who here remembers the movie? All right, so.
Who thinks of this when you think of JPMorgan Chase? Who works at Chase and has lived it?
So for those who haven't seen it or haven't seen it in 20 years, if you remember, Bill and Ted were best friends, and they had to travel back in time in a phone booth, assembling this cast of historical characters to complete their big high school project. And sort of unbeknownst to them at the time, getting this done was ultimately going to save the future of mankind.
Now, we didn't have a phone booth, and we're not naive enough to believe that, changing modern BI was going to save the world. But we did truly believe that we needed to change the culture for Chase to ultimately succeed. Business was moving too fast. Technology was moving too fast. We had to find new ways, new technologies to get through this. And we're going to share some of those challenges and where we're going in the future.
So it might sound like a bit of a silly analogy, but stick with us and you'll see kind of how accurate it really is. So let's go back in time to the beginning of our journey so you can join us on our excellent Tableau adventure. To set the stage, it's useful to understand that JPMorgan Chase operates under 2 main brands. There's the Chase brand, which has the consumer and community banking business, so things like the retail banking branch in your neighborhood, your credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, and small business banking. And then the JPMorgan side that has the corporate investment bank and asset management businesses.
So I entered this IT organization, and if you don't know much about Chase, those are our structures, lots of lines of business, lots of competing interests, lots of competing technologies. And as a financial institution, we have just a few regulations. We have a lot of regulations. We have to answer so many questions on a daily, weekly, monthly basis based on these regulations. So because of that, there's very low risk tolerance, or very high. It's very hard to change things. They don't want to take risks. They want to make sure it's the same and repeatable. And honestly, maybe you've heard this. I know I've heard it in my career. It's just the way we've always done it. So why change it? It's working. And you guys know the drill. That's something that we've been working against, and it's something that we want to share with you on how we have worked to change this giant company. So a little bit more of my background. So I did join JPMorgan Chase in 2007 on a BI team that was in the business. I was embedded in marketing. And this was a team that was looking to change. At that time, I was working on student loans. They didn't have any reporting consistently. They didn't have anything that was being delivered. It was taking months to even get insight into student lending marketing campaigns. So it really wasn't meeting their needs. So I worked in that team to change how we did reporting within the business. We were gathering data like he talked about, these analytics undergrounds. We were one of those teams, but we proved that it could be done. So I was asked in 2011 to take my experiences and come to IT, to see if I can have that same influence inside the walls of IT. But I had one objective, that there has to be a better way. What they were doing wasn't working, and they were hearing it from all levels, from the people on the ground floor, the people in management, that what they were doing wasn't delivering results and wasn't answering the business needs. So that's what I was asked to do. Anyone familiar with this process? The classic waterfall. It's beautiful, isn't it? But if you look a little closer, you notice all the trees are dying. There's a lot of dead wood in the water. Why do you think that is? Probably because this process doesn't work anymore. This is what I was trying to impart upon my leadership, that the traditional software development life cycle, albeit it kept you compliant and it gave you the appearance of control, oftentimes it was at the detriment of what the business really wanted. And they honestly knew things better than what we did, but we often weren't willing to listen. So that was my challenge, looking at this beautiful landscape. I do love nature, but I don't love the waterfall process. And I certainly don't like taking 6 months to deliver anything. My boss hears that all the time. I want it next week. I want it, we want a new process tomorrow, things like that. And the business is moving at that same speed. So 6 months of delivery is unacceptable in today's landscape.
So after using Tableau for a few years, I got recruited into Chase in 2011 to establish an analytics practice around marketing operations. Sounded like a nice greenfield opportunity. I was very excited about it, except when I got there, they don't have Tableau. So I felt like Ted here, kind of shocked, wondering what kind of fatal career mistake I've made. I thought I'm coming to like the biggest bank in the world. They have all the best technology, and they want me to use like Excel and SAS to solve problems. They don't have Tableau. So a little concerning for me. So I started asking around. And what I found is, kind of what I call the analytics underground. We had analysts that had been burned in the past many times by ever-expanding IT timelines. They felt they couldn't get what they needed, and honestly, they couldn't wait. They had critical problems, critical questions that needed answering. And the rate of those questions was increasing, so more and more coming in than they could answer. And so what did they do? Well, they used whatever tools they had available, forming these Excel marts or SAS farms. Sort of a database under your desk mentality, which gave them a lot of personal freedom, maybe control of their own destiny, but totally separate from IT. Certainly no governance or anything like that. So had me scratching my head quite a bit. Wondering, we have IT providing all these traditional BI tools, but no one in the business seems to want to use them. They just want their own grab bag of Excel files. So still relatively new at this point, and feeling like a bit of an outsider and just thinking like there has to be a better way. Doesn't seem right.
So we had to look for a better answer. So in IT, I knew we had to do things faster. So the first thing I was asked by my management was, let's take a look at the tools. And clearly they weren't working. We had, like I said, we had Cognos, we had business objects. So let's look at some new ones. Let's look at MicroStrategy. After 3 months, and I really wanted to hit something, I found this tool, this mystical tool sitting on a shelf, and my boss said, we bought that years ago, no one even knows what it is, but if you want to try it, go ahead. And I was like, all right, let me check it out and see what we can do with this tool that no one seemingly wanted.
And I wanted an option for my analysts to be able to answer questions faster. Right? I wanted to give them a tool that allowed them to do complex things without the need to write code. And I knew from my last job that a tool like Tableau was possibly the solution to these problems for me.
So I said to my boss, after looking at this tool, after 3 months of working in MicroStrategy, I built the demo that he wanted in MicroStrategy in 1 day. I'd never even used the tool before. And I said, we're onto something here. This tool, I said, we need to look at this. It's called Tableau.
I mean, I just needed something that I could connect to all of these databases all over the place from an organization that grew through mergers and acquisitions.
And I proved to him that I could build in mere hours what was taking weeks and months with all our other tools. It was revolutionary. It was changing the way we were going to do things. I wanted to get Tableau.
You know about Tableau?
Whoa! Whoa! Tableau!
That was the reaction.
Has everybody ever had that moment when you first used Tableau? Say it with me. Whoa! Whoa! Tableau. Come on, I want to hear you. We're in a big room. Whoa! Tableau. It's fun, right? Jason and Ted, they got it. They had that whoa moment. We're all about that whoa moment. And we knew this was the key to changing JPMorgan Chase.
Now, it's great that Tableau offers a free trial and encourages analysts to go out, download a copy, and get started today in their land and expand model. But if you've ever worked in a large organization, using internet is a little different. It's kind of like this. So I'm going to go out to Tableau's site, and
oh
blocked,
no! Remember,
blocked by a cybersecurity. I can't download files, right? So useless strategy at Chase there. So it was pretty clear that from the beginning, nobody was going to be going their own way, right? In order to be successful, we were going to have to partner and bring stakeholders along with us, win their support, bring them into the booth, so to speak, right? Like they're doing here. if we were going to be successful in bringing Tableau across the organization.
So the first person we needed to get into our booth, our illustrious telephone booth, was risk. We needed risk to admit that the controls, the regulations, the compliance things that they wanted us to do, frankly, were overstated. The interpretation of the rules that we were asked to do were not real. They may be more complex than what was really necessary. And we were finding that, we wanted to let the users get to their data themselves. That's scary. Why would we let them connect to the data on their own? And how do we sure they're going to do the math right? I mean, they're users. They're not IT people, right? Well, we had to change their thinking. And this is how we got them on board. We said, look, they're doing it already. They have these Excel marks. They've got tons of data. In fact, they keep breaking Excel because they bring too much data into it. But they love their pivot tables. In fact, now they're loading them into Access, and some of them somehow got SQL Server on a PC underneath their desk. And they're using SAS as the most powerful ETL tool in the world because they can get to data and they can do all these things. So we said, why don't we try something different? They're doing it already. Why don't we try this tool? So this is what we did. But the challenge was, again, still, who should build it? Do we really let them do it themselves? The demands of the business analysts were great. And they're the ones who are feeling the pain. And frankly, in my opinion, it's their data. It's not IT's data. We load it. We make sure it's there for them. But it's their data. They're the ones out there affecting customers on a day-in, day-out basis. Not me, not in IT. They're going to know it way better than me. And in fact, they're adapting to Tableau. They're getting it. They've got approval. They've gotten past the big red X to download it. And they're figuring it out. They've used Excel. They know how to write calculations. Now they're doing great things with Tableau that they've never done before. And IT, honestly, we had a huge backlog. How could we possibly take on one more tool? We've got 1,000 Cognos reports to write, and we've got to fix all these business objects universes. It'll go away. It's just a fad. We'll let them play with it. And finding talent, training people was impossible. So we just trusted them, and we got risk to agree that letting them do it was okay.
So at this point, it started to feel like we're starting to head somewhere familiar. In that first year, we went from those 10 licenses, we started with Steve, up to 400 desktop licenses. The analysts were very happy to get their hands on it, but it started to feel like we're heading down that underground path again, right? If we just keep buying desktop licenses and all these groups are going their own path, it's going to be no better than the Wild West days of Excel. Now, a lot of the analysts may have preferred that, right? They'd be perfectly happy to just give Tableau Reader, but passing around package workbooks is kind of marginally better than Excel at best. So, we knew we needed some level of central coordination, right? We needed a shared server environment. But the question was, who was going to run it? Because we were going to have both business analysts and IT developers building dashboards, kind of a brand new model. And we didn't know how we're going to coordinate that. Who's going to run the server? So all this meant that IT management was going to have to be engaged. Bummer.
Unfortunately, though, our foray into talking to IT management or about running a server didn't go as positively as we had hoped. Blow them up is what we heard. We don't need a server, just let them use their desktop. And that'll be sufficient. And that was the resounding words we heard at first because they frankly don't know. It's too flexible. There's too many things they can do. It's dangerous. And it was really, honestly, what we looked at, it was a threat. Because now no longer were they controlling everything. They weren't building universes. They weren't building frameworks. They were doing it on their own. And we're going to give them a server to do it and share it. It was okay to do it by themselves, but now they want to share. It's scary. So we had to bring IT management in the booth. We had to get them on board. And how were we going to do that? So, we looked at it and we said, what can we do to make this more familiar with you? So things that you are comfortable with. Remember, the business, it's their data. They know the questions. They can find the answers faster than we can. We don't want them to write requirements. We just want them to get better outcomes. So we implemented things to kind of give a feeling of control again. We have multiple servers now. We have dev. That's where they can play, but they can't share. It has to be migrated, and IT will do that for them. So we will make sure it works. So we'll move it to UAT, and then we'll move it to production. This feeling of control was restored. So happiness was restored to the IT management, and they allowed us to buy our first 8-core server license. Hooray for Tableau server.
So at this point, we had established that shared service environment supported by an IT team. But among the analysts, we started to notice something that we hadn't seen before. All the analysts that had adopted Tableau started actively seeking each other out to ask questions, share learnings, establish best practices. And we hadn't seen this before in the analytics community that was based on legacy enterprise software, where a lot of times those analysts sort of actively avoided sharing knowledge because they believed that their value to the organization is sort of their knowledge of that proprietary language. But the analysts that adopted Tableau seemed to have a much deeper understanding that only through sharing and spreading the knowledge of analytics can we actually change the culture and become data-driven. So instead of waiting for IT to tell them how they should be using this technology, the community were active participants in defining their own future. So as the Tableau user base grew, they were better positioned to work and partner with IT more broadly as Tableau was adopted across the enterprise. Part of this was having a deep partnership with our Tableau account team, doing things to bring Tableau to the analysts, whether it's dedicated Tableau days on site at our kind of globally distributed organization, doctor sessions, or virtual user group meetups internally, where we can have topics focused on a particular line of business, so it's very relevant to those analysts. Now, you know how things are going great right up until the point they're not. So several years ago, several factors converged at once. The London Whale, the rise of new regulatory bodies like the CFPB, that all resulted in a very intense focus on the controls environment at the bank. And this was not just on like banking operations, it was every team, including analytics and IT. So in order to satisfy these regulators, and because it's the right thing to do for our customers, we knew that every process, big or small, had to be looked at and ensured that we had the appropriate level of controls around it to understand the risk so that we can ensure consistent positive results and have clear traceability. So we had a new stakeholder that we had to bring into our booth, this new persona, a control officer. And they're concerned about things like, do we even have a well-defined process? And once we've documented it, as we look at it, where are the points that risk can be introduced? And then where can we implement controls to mitigate those risks? So here's how we won them over. Across the analytics teams, we had to work to align processes and reduce the manual touch points involved in data, automating a lot of the data flows. And honestly, this was a very painful process to go through, but we're in much better shape today, having gone through it.
So now we've got the attention of everyone. We've got analysts, we've got customers who are being successful using Tableau. We've got the risk people to allow them access to their own data. Huge change. And we've got IT management happy again. We're allowing them to move things to production and share their findings, their outcomes with the rest of their team. And so we got IT's full attention. And what was next? We had some tough questions to answer. First, we had to understand, how's this new tool going to fit in our new, we understand technology, but this is whole new. They're doing things so fast. This isn't, we need months to do something, not days. This is a development tool that we're putting in the hands of an analyst, not an IT person. So how are we going to support this? How are we going to be able to keep up with the pace of change? And honestly, the initial questions early on were, why does it cost so much? The cost for desktop license, or if we had to buy more cores, was a lot of money. And it was every time you had to go through a budget process to buy, maybe we bought 50 desktop licenses. Who was going to approve that? That's a big chunk of money, and someone had to write that check. Or we wanted to add cores, another big chunk of money. So we had to get the support of the line of businesses, their CIOs, to get them on board, get them into the booth. So they had faith that they could have all their data, all their analytics on the same environment as other groups. And to do this, we did some great things. We started implementing sites so we could segment. We could have HR doing their analytics right alongside, the Chase banking or investment people or asset management people. But because of sites, they're completely walled off. We wrote our own server monitoring tools so we could assure them that they're getting the most bang for the buck. We were looking at the performance of the servers, making sure that they're always running as fast as possible so we could justify buying more cores rather than just saying, I think we need it. We had the proof. And we came up with a real allocation model that worked at that time. We looked at how many users you have, and they were active on the system. So how much CPU are they churning? How much disk are they churning? How much network I/O? So we had a real allocation model, not just based on an arbitrary number, and they agreed. They said, this makes sense to us. Move forward. Let's adopt and expand this across the entire firm. So this whole new paradigm, it was changing everything. And we realized in IT that we had to do something different again. We had partnered, we had shook hands with the business before and said, we're your partner. So then we turn right around and we figure out how to shut them down because they're too out of control. But we had a partnership. We wanted to really prove to them that things were different now. We wanted to, not just check the IT boxes, but truly support them in all of their efforts. So what did we do? We created a Tableau Center of Excellence. And this Center of Excellence was business focused. Remember, I came from the business. So that was my background, I was in the business. I knew what the business wanted. So I wanted us to be business-focused IT. I didn't look at IT controls and all those things. I looked at the business. I wanted to make them successful, for I was trying to change everything to be based on what the business needed, not what on IT wanted. And fortunately, I've been very fortunate to have management that supported this along the journey, because it could have been not without its days of headaches, but they supported it ultimately. And now we do everything. So we do from proof of concepts. They call us up, we'd like a demo. So we do a demo the next day. And ultimately, if we can get their data, we can demo it with their data. Maybe we do a pilot project to show them that what dashboarding, what visual analytics look like, and why Tableau is different than anything they've seen. We train. We've trained in the first half of the year over 700 new developers, new analysts, and we can't keep up. So we're looking at ways to revamp our training, leveraging our partner Tableau and some of their e-learning to keep up with the pace, that growth that we're seeing. And in some cases, we do full development. Maybe they're not ready. Maybe they don't have the Tableau expertise, so they wanted us to do it. That was the partnership we were building. And what this did, it proved to them it wasn't just a handshake. It was real trust. And they now believed that this center of excellence and IT as a whole was behind them 100%. So where are we? The culture today. So it is a transformed culture. We have changed. So our allocation model has changed. We are now completely 100% subscription-based. That has allowed us to do some amazing things. I can keep up with demand. I now have 15 server clusters across the world. I'm supporting every line of business across the world. I have users in every country, essentially. We have now, and this number when we made the deck, is over 2,000 desktop users now, and it's growing. Now that the word is out that we're subscription-based and that cost of entry is gone, we do a demo, they're like, we want 100. We do a demo, we want 50. It's like everybody wants it now. And we're seeing people not just build dashboards, they're doing their jobs. They're analyzing data, solving problems without publishing. Their whole purpose is use it, visually solve problems using a powerful tool like this. And the trust has just grown. We have 30 sites now. We had a few at first. We now have over 30 sites across all these server clusters. Some of these clusters are dedicated to specific applications because they're near real-time processing. Data is flowing in minutes, and they want those dashboards to be refreshed. We had to dedicate hardware just to keep up with that demand. We have over 225 projects, thousands upon thousands of users. And it's growing. You know, as he said, we started with 10 users in 2011. We're now over 25,000 users, and I'm trying to keep up. My little team of 5 is getting tired, but we're doing our best.
So that all sounds excellent, Steve, but if we're being honest, everything is not perfect. Shocking,
You're right?
right?
You're right. There are still some challenges we're working through. It's not all perfect, but it is a lot better than it was before. But here's some of the challenges we're working through. So now we've got all of these clusters, 15 of them. How are we going to manage migrations? I have a team dedicated to running the hardware. I have a team dedicated to making sure the software's patched and all the drivers are right. They've got workers upon workers and gateways and all these things to manage. Massive. And then we've got migrations. We've got thousands of users building things, and they want them moved fast. They don't want to wait a week to get it into production. They want it that next day. So they want automation. So we're automating migrations now. Jason's team will be one of the first ones to do that, to where they put a tag on a workbook in a lower environment, it shows up in production the next day automatically. They don't have to do a thing. They don't have to fill out a ticket. It just happens. Version control. Thank you, Tableau, for putting that in server. Answered all of our risk problems. And now they're doing more than just business outcomes. We have CFOs, we have executives using these dashboards. They want the comfort. They now want to see, show me where this data is coming from. So we were looking at solutions. I've been talking to a lot of people this week out in the expo hall about how we can do real, timely metadata capture. And then I see the extensions API, and I'm like, holy grail. Now my team's going to be writing those extensions and leveraging those extensions so we can give them to the business to put them in their dashboards. Server governance. How are we going to make sure the servers keep up? So we created 2 new methodologies. First one we call data therapy. Sometimes your data just isn't happy. It's slow, it's big, and it just isn't working. So we help our business teams. Because remember, we're monitoring all these clusters 24 hours a day. We know everything that's going on. Who's using what, how fast it's loading, what extracts are failing. So we use data therapy to help them. Here's an example. I had a team, they were happy. They had a dashboard that took 5 minutes to load. They were excited. They didn't have a dashboard before, but they have one now, 5 minutes. Like, really? You're happy with 5 minutes? It's a little data therapy session. That same dashboard now loads in 10 seconds. All it took was educating them on how to do data differently, how to use dashboards differently. That's what our team is all about. And we're doing the same thing with calculations, a little counseling on their calculations to make sure they're doing it appropriately. Don't do everything in Tableau. Talk to your data people. Use performance monitoring to understand the SQL. And talk to your data people to get some of those calculations pushed down rather than doing them all in your visualizations. And then the challenge. Jason challenges. He's the guy who calls me or texts me at 10 o'clock at night. And my wife goes, Jason again, isn't it? Yes, it's Jason.
10.4 just hit.
Yep, 10.4 just landed. I downloaded it. It's like, okay, I'll get on that in the morning. But they want the latest capabilities, and Tableau keeps coming out with these great new features, but I have to get it approved. I have to have it security scanned. I have to do all these things. So how do we keep up? Those are some of the challenges that we have, and we don't have all these answers, but these are some of the things we're working through.
And here's kind of what our Tableau setup looks like for our team. We've got many data sources, a sampling of which are on here, right? We have legacy data warehouses. We have more modern MPP databases, big data lakes, and of course Excel files, because there will always be Excel files as a data source. We can never get rid of that, right? My team uses Alteryx for advanced analytics and data prep, as well as Tableau Desktop against these myriad data sources to build dashboards and then serve them up by Tableau server to the different business teams, managers, and executives that we support. So this is all great and it's working wonderful for us today, but I'm always trying to think ahead and, make sure my IT partners are working to, give us the best tools and kind of really challenge them to push the limits of what's possible. So, Steve, what's next?
What's next? So we created a new program. I had to go to risk again. I had to say, I'm IT. I'm not allowed to see business data. That's a rule. When you're a large company like this, IT developers are not allowed to see real production data. We build against this mock data, and we hope it's right. So I convinced them that our business needed help. We've got all these users. We're doing data therapy, and sometimes just doing it over their shoulder isn't enough. So we created what we called Jumpstart. And Risk approved it, because I proved to them that it was a finite amount of time, finite number of people, and the business was the one asking for it. So this is where my team partners with the business, and we do it in 3 agile sprints, 9 weeks. First agile sprint, fix the data. Second one, build a dashboard. Third one, train them on how to do it. We're doing training, but maybe they weren't getting it. So let's build something for them, then train them on how to manage it. So in 3 sprints, we have a team of people who are now equipped to take it to the next level. And a Risk approved that. So certification, thank you, certified data sources. They also, in terms of, they want the lineage and they want the metadata repository, they want to know that some of this data is certified. Previously, we let the business, it's their data, they build the structures, they build the queries, they promote it. It's their data. If it's regulatory, things like that, yeah, there's a lot more scrutiny. But now, they're wanting to do the same type of reports, some certification, some ad hoc analysis using iPads. So we created a new cluster called Certified Self-Service. They were already doing self-service, they're doing it themselves, but we wanted to certify it. So this goes through a much more rigorous process where we make sure the SQL's right. We make sure everything's documented with a data dictionary, everything's commented, so they can make accurate, on-the-fly decisions knowing that this is a trusted data source. And the cloud. Chase is a huge movement now to move things to the cloud. Not only consuming data from the cloud, but we want to move Tableau to the cloud. Whether it's our internal cloud or to public cloud, we're working all that out. But that is something on our roadmap, as well as mobile. We don't currently use the mobile app, but we will be. And we use the good browser, the BlackBerry browser. It works, thankfully, and it's approved, but we want to get the offline analytics and all those capabilities. Things that Jason and his team is asking for.
Absolutely. One of the best things about our whole Tableau journey is personally I've got to work with a lot of different lines of business. Remember that first slide I showed you, all these different departments and lines of business. I've got to partner with them and help show them the power of Tableau. And I've got to learn a lot about our business and different data sources we have. And finance always seemed to me as would always be the perpetual holdout, right? These are the people that love Excel more than life itself. This is a funny cartoon. My friend Philip does these data noodles. You can follow him on Twitter there. But they're looking at who needs a database, right? We can make it as big as we can and create hundreds and hundreds just like it, right? This pretty much typifies most finance departments we've ever dealt with. So you can imagine my shock when 2 months ago, the CFO of our organization came to me. She'd seen the work that we had done and said, I want your help in retiring and turning off the 400 Excel files that we send weekly and monthly to our executive teams to run to our management meetings. And the CFO asked for Tableau by name, right? That's pretty amazing. Like that's how far we've come in this journey. She envisions a day where her leadership meetings are being conducted on iPads. We're in the middle of this basically 1-year plan to make that happen for her. So instead of bringing in reams of tables and someone asking a question and flipping through hundreds of pages hoping you printed the right answer, right? You just do a few clicks, drill down, and have that so you can make decisions. So what we're seeing now is the business is now driving the IT objectives, right? We're taking an analytics-first approach to enable data-driven decision-making.
He keeps me busy. And then we have our own IT initiatives. We want to move stuff to cheaper platforms. We want to go from traditional Teradata, Oracle platforms to Hadoop. But getting it there is one thing, consuming it is something completely different. And we have to make sure the right controls are in place. Who can see PI content and who cannot? And how do we monitor the access? So we're actually using Tableau to monitor all the access to all of our data platforms now, including Teradata, Oracle, and Hadoop. But we wanted better performance. So we're talking to a lot of vendors about, do we aggregate it in Hadoop? Do we aggregate it external? Do we build cube structures? Do we use an indexing methodology? We're trying to find the best blend, so as data moves to the big data Hadoop platforms, performance is not compromised. And then with the announcement of Hyper, how's that going to fit? We're excited about that. It's obviously going to help Tableau Server, but what else will we be able to do with it down the road? Those are things that we're constantly looking for. And data wrangling. We already use Alteryx, but we're looking at other options to put in other general users, data scientists, looking at tools like Trifacta and other things, and how we're going to govern these. So we're constantly looking at new technologies.
So there's really 3 lessons, key takeaways that we have from our adventure that we hope you can use in your own Tableau journey. The first is to partner early with your IT and business stakeholders, because you're not going to get far alone. It was really through the partnership that any of this happened. The second is to promote a community, internally and externally, because analytics can only scale when it's social. And then finally, don't be afraid to ask why. The answer might be no, but you have to challenge the assumptions and continually push to improve if you're ever going to change the culture. It's been quite a journey, wouldn't you say, Steve?
It's been a most excellent adventure indeed. So with that, that's what we got. That's our story, and hope you agree it has been an excellent adventure. We are open to any questions. There's people with a couple people with microphones, so hold your hand up and we'll do our best to answer your questions.
Yeah, great presentation. My question is, what control measures do you have when publishing and when migrating from, say, the test environment to the production environment?
So from an IT perspective, I look at it this way. They built it, they know it. I have 5 people, I have over 1,000 workbooks. I have no time to check them all. They get sign off, we need an email sign off that they approve it, we move it. So it's on the business to approve their own dashboards before going over. That way, they own it, and we allow them to do that. And we got risk approval to do that, knowing that it's not typical, but I wanted to make it as fast as possible with minimal intrusion by IT.
And that keeps me happy, because I don't expect them to understand my data, right? I want them to keep a robust platform that works, but I want to take ownership of the data. So. Raise your hand. There we go.
Yeah, so looking at the stack that you guys had, I don't remember seeing an ETL tool there. Have you skipped that whole piece, or was it just not listed?
So in the one I showed, we use my team uses Alteryx quite a bit. You could call that personal ETL, but we also have other legacy enterprise ETL tools. Each group is going to be different. I mean, Steve sees a lot more of the projects than I do. I know my team stuff. We use Alteryx. There are other teams, I'm sure, using some of the other ETL offerings that we have as well.
Yeah, our data warehouses, they use the traditional Informatica ab initios. Yep. But the business teams don't use those. We don't let them. So Alteryx and Trifacta are tools.
More the data wrangling tools for the business. Yeah.
First, very nice presentation. I like Bill and Ted.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions. One is, you showed the traditional SDLC, and you touched a little bit on the new process. Wanted to see what the differences are, based on versus the traditional. How long does it take to move something into kind of the production environment through the SDLC process? Not just like migrating the workbook, but is there any kind of intervention done to move that on the back end side? And the second part is, in terms of, I saw all the data warehouses you had up there. Do most of your users use live connections or extracts? And if they're extracts, how do you get around the difficulties with data duplication when you're connecting into like an entitlement table using extracts?
Yeah, so you want to break that up. So I think in that first slide we talked about SDLC when IT was doing all BI development. So if we kind of break that apart now, you think a team like mine is doing the dashboard development, right? We'll work very quickly, and we err on sort of delivering smaller things a lot faster, right? Sitting with kind of the stakeholder, and maybe if it's a marketer that needs some dashboard to better understand like how email campaigns are performing, deliver something, spec it out, build it out, say within a week. and then turn it over to Steve's team to move to production, and then their timelines are like a day or something, right? So
typically a day or two to move something from environment to environment, and once we get automation, it'll be there the next day.
So it's an iterative process. Then there might be more requirements, and we'll build some more. But it's generally like we'll get things, the first version, up very quickly within a week or two.
Right.
And then,
but as for your question about extract versus live, we almost tell everyone hybrid.
yeah.
Extract where necessary to get performance. Live query, especially when you're looking for transactional detail, PI content, anything of that nature, because I don't want Tableau to be in charge of managing access to data. So if it's an aggregate, monthly numbers, counts, sums, I'm not worried about that. And we have a limit. It's not a hard limit, but we monitor 500 megabytes is the limit on an extract. Because we share this server across hundreds of projects, so we can't let one team dominate. And when we see something, we talk to them about how can you extract the right information and work with your DBAs to allow that live query to work very rapidly so we can get live queries against. We have one example, we have a project where they load 3 billion records a day, and we still get under 20-second response time on every click. In most cases, 10 seconds or less. So it can be done with a live query. You just got to have the right.
Just depends on the database, right? I showed that slide, like every group has their data differently, and so when they're starting and using Tableau, the first question is like, well, where is your data? And right, if like, oh, well, we got this old Oracle database, we kind of prepare them that, well, slapping Tableau on top of it is probably going to be a poor experience, right? And we may redo that. So my group's been fortunate enough that we are sort of the test case for a lot of newer technologies. So we use a lot of some of the newer in-memory databases. And so we traditionally used extract where we had to, where there was a lot of data blending going on, things like that. But now more we're using some of those in-memory databases so we can support live queries.
Yep. Yep.
Our organization has maybe 5 to 7 users, and we're in a position where we have dueling dashboards. I'm saying it's A, B, and C, and the other person's slicing it a slightly different way. What process or what things do you have within your community to kind of ensure consistency and governance across the group?
Well, that's a very good question. That's why we organized the sites the way we did, so common groups are grouped together. So mortgage, all the mortgage projects are grouped together, and the goal is for us to educate them. They may not even know there's a team right next to them that's doing development because they often don't talk. So we often become the communication vehicle in IT saying, look, there's 5 projects. In fact, I know you guys. I've helped you, and you sit right next to each other. Maybe you can work together, and we've done that to where now they're looking at how can we collaborate rather than duplicate. And to answer your question before, I don't get in the business of monitoring where their data is. If multiple teams do it, I guess I have to live with it, but my goal is to encourage them. We look at where their queries are running, where their data sources are, and try to get them to collaborate, but I don't stop them.
Yeah, and so on the business side, right, as you know, like people using the exact same data source, even if it's certified, could come up with different answers to sort of your question, right? Like because maybe they excluded this or didn't do that, defining metrics slightly differently. And really the only way to solve that in a small team of 5, right, that's a lot easier to solve because you can talk to each other, especially if you're co-located. But in an organization like ours where it's 20,000 people all over the world using Tableau, we have to, one of the things we've done is basically build an internal virtual community, kind of like a social community for analysts. This sort of grew out of Tableau, but it's larger than just Tableau, where analysts can share sort of the definitions, things of that, and find each other, this group's doing this as well. And then that can help surface things for, when things are ready to be certified and data lineage and all that good stuff. So.
Okay, here's another question. So if you have a center of excellence, and what's actually the percentage of time that your members actually devoted into developing dashboards? Because they must be very good at developing it, and all of the other department probably knows about it. So
he has a few rock stars, right? But.
Yeah, I've got several very talented people I'm fortunate to work with, and we just took a hard look at what we've done. We track our time. We track the amount of time. We try to get people to serve themselves. So our portal, our web portal is hit a lot. But unfortunately, we still, our number one question we get, and this is no joke, Tableau probably isn't best to do this, but how would you solve this? So, and my first question is, why are you using Tableau then if it's not the right tool? Or, you know, and then a lot of times what they're trying to do is replicate a existing process in a tool that they don't want to do visual. They want to do exactly what they've been doing, just in a new tool. And I'll tell managing directors why. Why are you just going to move if you're just going to do the same thing? You need to look at it differently. So how much does my time, I wish my team had more time to do, you know, things like extension APIs, things like Python and R. They're on our list. We have our own agile, you know, backlog that we track. These are our internal development, and unfortunately, they seem to always get pushed aside because business demands come up. So we're staffing up, and at the same time, trying to push more on the business community so the Tableau users group helps itself instead of always coming to us. Yeah.
Have you waded into GDPR compliance, and if so, is that something just at the data layer, or when it gets into extracts and things, are you going to have to address that in Tableau as well?
So I monitor the Tableau extracts, and I use a third-party tool to scan for the data elements across all the projects and look for PI content, because my goal is to have no PI content on Tableau server. And if I do, I have to have approval from that business team and proof that they are giving access to only people that should. Otherwise, we leave that all in the data layer so that the roles and all the security measures are done at the data layer, because that's where all those compliance issues should reside, not in the analytics tool. So that's how we've addressed that.
Hi, just a question. You mentioned about working in a heavily regulated environment. How do you use other reporting solutions, say, to create regulator-dictated formats for reporting?
Yeah, so with, you know, all the financial crisis and everything, all of that is done in Cognos, and I have no passion to convert that to Tableau. It works there. It can be FTP'd to the compliance portal, and all those things happen. Or do they want it distributed through email and bursted and all those things? There's things that just don't make sense to go to Tableau, and I will tell them, you know, here's the choice. You have Cognos or Tableau, and we push more of those projects, or we ask them to stay on that platform, because that's what it's better suited for, and it'll always be there for that. We are looking at, you know, there are teams that are wanting to do compliance reporting, and that's where we have to have those structures for lineage to prove to the regulators that these are compliant. So it is being done, but typically it's Cognos. Yeah.
Hi guys. How have you managed users' back-end access, data access, so that they can actually produce these reports, especially across as many users as it sounds like you guys have?
So there's an entire data provisioning team, so that's separate from us. So, and nothing can go from a dev environment to production with a user's credentials. So it's either a live connection where the user has to put in their username and password and they have to have gotten access from that data team, or they use a functional ID if they're using an extract, and then, but everything is done through an automated system through Active Directory groups, and we don't import a single user, we import groups, and users just come and flow, or come in and out based on nightly jobs of loading those groups. Because I want nothing to do with that data governance. I leave that to the data teams and the people who
Makes
own
life
that.
a lot easier.
Yeah, I have enough stress.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Could you speak more to the quality control processes you use on both the business and IT sides for ensuring data quality and certification? And then also more on the IT release management processes?
Yeah, so I can start that. So on the business side, I mentioned sort of our typical cycle is like working quickly, delivering small things fast. So in that example I gave, right, we might get a marker that says, you know, I need some sort of dashboard, right, to help me better understand my email campaigns. And sometimes we find they have existing reporting, maybe it's Excel files, maybe they have like a SaaS guy doing stuff for them today. So we'll work with them, we'll take what they have and then we'll try and re-envision it, make it better, turn it back to them and say, all right, does everything match? Like this is the reporting you've been getting, here we've reproduced it, here's how we're calculating ROI, here's how we're calculating click-through rate. We're fully transparent about how all that works, right? we get their sign off and then turn it over and move it into production and follow their processes. Right. So it's just partnering with those subject matter experts, kind of wherever they are, depending on who's asking us to build something for them.
We do have a data review board for things where it is necessary to go through that. So we do have full sign off from a DRB if necessary. And with our self-service certified cluster, we have a scaled back version of a DRB because I don't want it to go through naming. I'm not worried about naming conventions. I want to make sure the source is accurate and performant. Those are my two objectives. I want it to be fast and I want it to be right. I'm not worried about what it's called. So I'm not going to police their design. I'm not going to police their naming structures. I have one team that I think has sheet 1 through 72, and that's what they're called. I'm like, really? You couldn't come up with something more creative than sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3? I mean, come on. But I don't police it, so. Anyone else? Yeah.
What version of Tableau are you running, and how do you determine when you're going to move to the latest upgrade, and how do you release that to the users?
Depends how badly I'm harassing them. That's what
behind you, pointing at himself, is our elite support person. We're currently running 10.02. We tried to migrate to 10.3.1, and there was a bug that we hadn't detected during our testing that we had to roll back to 10.02. We're going to move to 10.3.3 because it's since been fixed. And it was something that we just didn't catch in our testing. Our goal is to be quarterly. So every quarter we're upgrading, and we're trying to do that. So essentially my server team will never be done because they have 15 clusters. So they start, and by the end of that quarter they will finish. But at the same time, I've got to update desktop, and at Chase that's not easy. You saw that no one can download. So I have to get software approved and packaged, and that can take several weeks as well. So quarterly is about the best I can do.
And we're willing to go through it. I mean, a year ago when we were here at Tableau Conference, I think we were still on version 8, right? So getting to 10 was a really big deal inside our organization, and so everyone's kind of happy about that. Now we want to keep that momentum and stay close. We know we can't always have everyone because Tableau just works really quick and seems to release things all the time. So I think we are out of time.
Yeah.
So
please, if you get a chance, review our session. We're always looking for good feedback. And thank you for all your great questions, and have a most excellent conference.
Thank you.